Hello! A little while ago I made a video about why I bought this BMW i3 range extender. Now they say time flies when you're having fun, and I must have been having a lot of fun because it's now 6 months since I bought that car, and so I thought it was probably time to do another update. Now rather than drive the car around and review it like I did last time, I'm actually just going to sit here and talk you through some of the things I've learned. And if you enjoy this video, please do let us know in the comments below, and I'll do a similar video on my Audi A2 as well. And if you like that, then perhaps we'll even get some other CarGurus contributors to do some similar videos on their own cars. Right, let's get going. So why did I buy a BMW i3 in the first place? Well, it is something that I covered in the original video. I'll put a link to that in the description below. But just to recap, I guess I felt like I wanted a new family car, something to replace the A2. I loved the innovative build and construction of the A2. I was looking for something similar. But I did consider other things as well as the i3. I looked at Renault Sport Clio 200 Cups. I love those, I think they're so cool. I considered plug-in hybrids like the Audi A3 e-tron and the VW Golf GTE. But in the end, I think it was sort of the sense that the BMW had the same sort of forward-thinking approach as the A2 had at the time that it was built. So it's got this carbon fibre reinforced passenger cell, which is really cool. I love this interior. It's very different to anything else. All these sort of recycled materials and things are just quite interesting, really. As to the fact that it was electric, that wasn't really as big a concern as the sort of the build of construction. I think if BMW had built these with just a petrol engine, then I probably would have been just as interested. What's interesting in that regard then is how quickly the switch to electric has actually started to make a lot of sense to me. So we do have a wall box at home now. We've got a pod point, so that's a 7 kilowatt wall box. We can charge the car in just under 3 hours if the battery is really low, so it doesn't take very long to charge. And it has been very, very convenient. I kind of am sold on the electric car ownership side of things. It's not just the convenience of home charging that I like either. I also enjoy driving an electric car. I like the fact that it's so quiet, that it's so easy to drive. I like the really strong regenerative braking you get in the i3. It just feels a bit different. Admittedly, the ride's not great. It is pretty sort of skittery in the way it goes down the road, but you know, it's fine. I think on balance for what I use the car for, it's okay. Similarly, it's not like a particularly fun car to throw around on a good road, but again, that's not really why I bought it. And it's probably also why I didn't go for something like that Clio 200 Cup. It's just that's not the role that I want this car to play. Now, the indicated range I can get from a full charge varies a lot depending on the temperature outside. So in the winter months, I was seeing sort of as little as 50 miles really from a full battery charge on the display here. Now that it's springtime and it's warmer, I'm seeing 70 miles or more from a full charge. And if you couple that with the 70 or so miles you get from a full tank of petrol with the range extender, it actually makes for a pretty usable range. When I sort of read the comments underneath the first video I made about the i3, there was a fair bit of chatter about whether actually it made the i3 a hybrid rather than an electric car, and whether really it was just adding weight and complication to the matter when it didn't really need it. Well, my take on it after 6 months and a few thousand miles of motoring is that personally I still think it's quite a neat solution. So I don't need a car with a really big battery because I don't do a lot of long distance driving in this car. Most of the driving I do is well within the capabilities of the battery only range. However, when I do go further, it is really reassuring to know that I can just press button 8 here, which I've programmed for the range extenders to come on, and I can complete that journey with no fuss or stress. As to whether it makes it a hybrid or an electric car, I can't say I care that much. To me, it's still an electric car because I do almost all of my driving in pure electric mode. But I guess that with the petrol capabilities of the range extender, you could call it a hybrid as well. Doesn't really matter, does it? Now, as to the range extender, there is definitely a sense that you learn how to use it effectively. So to illustrate that, I'm going to go back in time actually to probably what was early 2014 when these cars first arrived in the UK. I was working for Telegraph Cars at the time, and I went to the UK launch event. Now this involved driving i3 range extenders from the centre of London down to Brands Hatch, where you did a bit of a slalom, and actually also they did drag races against V8 powered M3s. And I think it was a bit of a wet, slippery day, and in some instances the i3 seemed to get off the line quicker, up to about 30 miles an hour, than the M3. I think there's some videos on YouTube that might be worth hunting out if that is of interest. Now, actually on that day I didn't go to Brands Hatch. Instead I chose to drive to the coast. I wanted to see what would happen. Well, first I wanted to see how far we get on a full charge, but then I wanted to see what would happen when we drove on the range extender. I think from memory we did about 70 miles on the battery power, and then the range extender kicked in and that was all fine. The problems came when we tried to get back. So bear in mind this was a few years ago now. There wasn't much charging infrastructure, certainly in that part of the country, so we were relying just on the range extender. We had basically a flat battery, and what we found was that the range extender really struggled to deliver enough power to keep the battery topped up enough that we could maintain a decent motorway speed. Actually, sometimes we were dropping down to 40 miles an hour or so, which obviously is not ideal. Now, I don't use the range extender like that anymore, and quite frankly I doubt that anybody who ever bought an i3 range extender used the range extender like that. Instead, what I do is I pre-program the iDrive so that button 8 switches the range extender on, and I know that if I'm doing a journey where I'm going far enough to need the range extender, that I just switch it on much earlier in the journey. So it seems that if you want to do a steady motorway 70 miles an hour, that the range extender is probably not quite powerful enough to hold a constant state of battery charge. You do still seem to use a few miles of battery charge along the way. Some of that you can get back from regen, but maybe not all of it. But however, by turning the range extender on and running it, you can really monitor that very, very, very gradual battery usage without stressing that you can't maintain speed, or that you are not going to get to your destination. And basically once you've done 70 miles or so, you just stop and stick more fuel in if you want, or you can find a rapid charger. But that definitely has been a learning curve of having this range extender technology, and now that I do know how to use it effectively, it's really not been a problem. I basically just save the battery range to the end of the journey rather than use it all up at the beginning of the journey. I also spoke in my first video about how I'd fitted Continental winter tyres to my i3, which sure enough means it has been a pretty mild winter, at least here in the southeast of England anyway. So while I can say that the tyres are pretty quiet and that they're certainly grippy enough, what I can't say is how much better they've performed in very cold weather than normal tyres on the i3. So actually what I'm going to do is switch back to my normal summer tyres now and run those through the summer, and then maybe we can do that comparison test next winter instead, unless we have really abnormal weather in the summer, of course. The other thing that some people mentioned in the comments that I just felt like it was worth addressing is kind of the question of, why didn't you just buy a Tesla Model 3? Well, the answer to that is I couldn't afford a Tesla Model 3. There is also the question of whether I need the range that a Tesla gives me, but mainly I bought a car that was within my budget. So yeah, the answer to that is I couldn't afford one. Right, there is plenty more to talk about with this car, and I will be making videos in the future, but I also feel like that's probably enough waffling for now. If you enjoyed it, please do let us know. Like I say, we'll try and make some more of them. But yeah, we'll see you next time. In the meantime, please do leave your comments below if there's other questions about the i3 you would like answered. And also, please do subscribe to the CarGurus UK YouTube channel. Yeah, we'll see you next time.